Okay, and we're back, and this, I promise, is going to be the final chapter of this week. Um, so, I've been catching up on some titles that I've been reading, actually on my computer. So some digital comics, if you will. It's not something that normally I'm into. I like the fact that they're on paper. Um, but I got a really good application on my computer for reading comics. If you have Comical, dump it and get Comic Rack. That's a much better CBR file viewer. Um, I got some recent issues of Amazing Spider-Man. I think it's 650 through 654 or something to that effect. It's kind of the big time arc. Um, you know, entertaining read. Some people were talking about like they were crying and they thought, oh, this was so amazing. It's like it's really it's more Spider-Man. You know, Yay, he's got a girlfriend and he's got and he's being Spidey and Spidey's finally doing some he's finally getting some good press and he's got this great job and he's got this kick-ass girlfriend who's a cop and she doesn't know that he's Spider-Man and he's fighting the new Hobgoblin, which is Phil Urich, who was the kind of good Green Goblin back in the 90s for a little while, but now he's the bad Hobgoblin. It's just it was an interesting read. It's certainly not anything that I would write home about, but it's good. I like Dan Slott. I think he's got a good head on his shoulders. It's certainly a good departure from J. Michael Straczynski, if that's how you pronounce his name, because I fucking hated his shit. The Back in Black storylines. It's like, oh my god. And then the biggest tragedy of Spider-Man that I've ever seen, and this might offend some people, so I hope that you're not taking this completely out of context. But the black issue, the 9/11 issue, was I think. It could have been constructed a lot better. I mean, really a lot better. Because it was just, I guess the thing that bothered me the most about it is the scene in which Doctor Doom is crying. Why would Doctor Doom cry at the destruction of two buildings? I mean, Doctor Doom is he's a despot. He's a dictator. He's a killer. I mean, why would this make him cry? That's what So, and then of course the fucking One More Day shit. I mean it's just garbage. And the Sins Past with bringing the Gwen Stacy and Norman Osborn's kids. I mean that's just I wished harm against that man. Anyway, so moving on from there. Also been reading some recent issues of Birds of Prey. I want to get more into that because Gail Simone is the shit. When it comes to most of the when it comes to DC, you got some good people over there, but like Gail Simone and Jeff Johns are my two favorite people over there right now. Also been reading some some Brightest Day tie-ins like Justice League Generation Lost, which is basically the hunt for Max Lord, and that only 5 people know that he's actually that he actually ever even existed, and that he is a very ruthless and pretty fucking evil man, even though his idea is to save the world. So that's been an interesting read. But the big one is I finally got to read almost every issue of Alan Moore's run on Marvel Man, or Miracle Man, whatever you want to call it. Miracle Man is what it's called here in the US. Back in the UK, it was called Marvel Man because it does have, it's basically, it's what Alan Moore essentially, kind of does best. It's taking an established character, namely Captain Marvel, and turning it on its head so that it's more of a kind of real world scenario, or a not a real world scenario per se, but yeah, I guess that's really the best word for it. Because what if someone like Captain Marvel and the Marvel family really existed? It's probably the trippiest shit that he's ever done. It's the first 6 or 7 issues really really had me hooked in. The childbirth issue, which is arguably the most controversial issue of that time period of the single comic, showing very graphically a child's birth, very graphically. uh, it was and then dealing with that child as it grew. But I mean, again, it gets you know Alan Moore's run on Swamp Thing also delved into this, but for me it was easier to understand for some reason with Swamp Thing. This delves, I think, way too much into his kind of his very unique kind of ultra poetic sensibilities, and it's lovely. I mean, the stuff that he writes is mind blowing, but it's as a comic, it's a little when it kind of starts out one way and then it kind of morphs into this kind of more ethereal, more poetic sensibility. That's where it kind of started to lose me. I mean, it's still powerful. It's still Alan Moore, which pretty much guarantees it's going to be a really good read. But the cohesiveness of the structure of the comic just kind of got lost. I think, to me, and this is coming from somebody who is you can't really see it from here, but Ave Acque Vale from from V. There's I have the V symbol tattooed up here, so obviously I'm a huge fan of Alan Moore. His work is pretty much amongst the best that comics have ever produced, and that also goes for Lost Girls. It's really that's probably the finest example of is pornography. Can pornography be art? And I think that he demonstrated with Lost Girls that yes, it can be. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about any more of his stuff because it's Alan fucking Moore, so it's pretty awesome. So I was very happy to finally get my hands on some of those issues, because the first issue that I got was actually issue 2. I got it at a flea market just outside of Chicago, Illinois, back I think in 1989 or 1990. It was just there. It had Alan Moore's name on it. By that time, I was already into him. So I figured I better pick up this issue, and I've never read any other issue since then. And finally getting my hands on some of these comics and being able to read them, I'm glad that I did. I'm going to leave off there. So that pretty much takes us through what I've been reading lately. Next week we're going to have more comics. Might have some TV talk. I do want to talk about Smallville at some point in the near future, because this is the last season. I've watched every season now. Been following it pretty religiously since I think about season 3 or 4 was really when I started to really get into it. And then bought the earlier box sets on DVD. Yeah. It's one of my favorite shows, and I would like to talk about what's going on in this particular final season. So, anyway, good night, good luck. We'll see you again next time at the Shadow Gallery. Please leave your comments, criticisms, complaints. Subscribe to my channel, because we're talking comics here, baby. We're talking movies, we're talking games, We're talking all sorts of good shit. So see you next time.